right, let's calculate uncertainties for your lab report. And today we're going to calculate an uncertainty of an average value. So what does it mean? Let's say you have multiple measurements of the same thing, and then you calculate an average of all these measurements. So how do we find uncertainty for this average value? So the answer is simple and is shown in this box, and it might look quite scary, but in reality, the calculation is rather simple. Let's start with the second equation because it looks a little more friendly. And here we calculate the average of our measurements. And that's very simple. So let's say we have some measurements of x, and we will call an average of this measurements x bar. And in order to find an average, you just need to add up all the measurements and divide it by the number of measurements you have. Or I can also write it in this compact form. And this squiggly symbol, which is called sigma, represent the summation from the first measurement to the very last measurement. So once you know the average, now we need to find an uncertainty in the average, and we'll call it delta x bar. And you can calculate it using this formula, or I expanded it here. So uncertainty in average is calculated as a square root of this fraction, and in the numerator you have a sum of the squares of the difference between your measurement and the average value which you just calculated. So here you take a difference between the measurement and the average, square it, and then add the next measurement minus average, squared, and so on. And then you divide by the product of the number of the measurements and the number of the measurements minus 1. All right, that might be still very confusing, so let's do an example. Let's say you're dropping something out of your window, and your friend Jack is standing outside with a stopwatch measuring how long it takes for the object to reach the ground. So let's say you dropped it once, and he told you that the measurement was 10.7 seconds. And you said, you know what, let's do it again. So in the second measurement turned out to be 10.2 seconds. And then you didn't like how he does it. So you decided to switch and do it 3 more times. Let's say the measurement number 3 turned out to be 11.1 seconds. Something didn't go right here. And then we did 2 more measurements, which was 10.5 seconds. And the last one is 10 seconds. So now let's calculate the average. That is easy. So the average value of time is the sum of all of our measurements. And the number of measurements, or n in our equation, is 5. So we divide it by 5. And the average value is 10.5 seconds. That's nice. Now let's calculate the uncertainty in average. Delta t average equals, so we're taking big square root. Now I'm taking the first measurement, 10.7 seconds, and I subtract the average from it, 10.5 seconds squared. Now I take the second measurement, 10.2 seconds, and subtract the average again. And we continue in same fashion. And then I divide this by n, which is 5, times n minus 1, which is 5 minus 1. And I take the square root. And the answer turns out to be 0.1924 seconds. And now we can write the answer. So my average value of time turned out to be 10.5 plus minus I will round up my error, 0.2 second. That was easy, and that's how you do it.